The triplets were screaming again. Loud, sharp cries that seemed to shake the walls of the billionaire's mansion. It was past 2 a.m., and the sound echoed through every hallway like a storm that refused to stop. The night guards stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Even the house manager, Mr. Dalton, looked helpless. The lights flicked on one by one, and soon the entire estate was awake. The billionaire, Grayson Cole, rushed down the stairs barefoot, still wearing his silk sleeping shirt. His face was tight with worry and anger. "What is happening?" he shouted. "Why won't they stop crying?" No one had an answer. The three babies, Liam, Lucas, and Lily, only 6 months old, lay in their golden cribs, red-faced and shaking with nonstop cries. They cried so hard that their little chests bounced up and down. The doctors had already come earlier in the night, checked them, and left confused. They said the triplets were healthy but distressed, which made no sense. Everyone stood around, watching helplessly, except for the new nanny. The black nanny named Ms. Evelyn Ward, a quiet woman with silver hair, warm brown skin, and eyes filled with calm. She had only been hired 2 weeks earlier after leaving her old job in Chicago. No one in the house knew much about her, except that she came with strong recommendations. But tonight, she moved with a confidence no one else had. While the triplets screamed, Evelyn stepped forward slowly, as if she was walking toward something she already understood. She placed her hand on the door frame, closed her eyes for a brief moment, and inhaled deeply. Then she did something no one expected. She walked straight to the crying triplets, held out both hands, and whispered something so soft that no one could hear it. In less than 5 seconds, the screaming stopped. Not lessened, not slowed. Stopped. The triplets looked up at her with wide, quiet eyes, peaceful, almost enchanted. Everyone in the room froze. Mr. Dalton's jaw dropped. A housemaid crossed herself. Grayson Cole stared, unable to move. How did you do that?" he whispered. But Evelyn didn't answer. She simply turned her head slowly toward the billionaire, and the strange, unreadable look in her eyes made Grayson take one small step back. Before he could ask again, a loud crash suddenly came from outside the nursery door, like something heavy had been thrown against the wall. Everyone spun around. The hallway was dark, too dark, and someone or something was standing there. The house lights flickered, then went out completely, leaving the mansion in total darkness. Welcome to stories where wealth meets humanity, and every moment reveals the unexpected. Subscribe now for more powerful billionaire stories that will move and inspire you. The darkness swallowed everything so fast that no one even had time to breathe. One moment the hallway was dim, the next it was pitch black, so deep that even the glow from the nursery nightlight seemed to vanish. For a few seconds, the only sound in the house was the shaky breathing of the staff and the soft, steady hum of the triplets, who still lay calmly in their cribs as if nothing strange had happened. Grayson Cole stepped backward, bumping into the side table near the nursery door. "Someone get the backup power on," he shouted, but his voice didn't sound as strong as it usually did. Cracked a little. The darkness made him feel small, trapped, and unsure of what he was facing. Mr. Dalton fumbled for his phone to use the flashlight, but the screen wouldn't turn on. He hit the power button again and again. "Sir, it's dead. My phone was fully charged a minute ago." Another guard in the hallway tried his phone too, and his flashlight wouldn't work either. Ms. Evelyn Ward stood perfectly still beside the triplets' cribs, not frightened, not confused, just listening. Her posture was calm, almost like she expected this. The faint shapes in the room shifted slightly as she tilted her head. "No one move," she said in a low voice. Grayson looked at her, surprised. "Why?" "Because the house isn't empty," she whispered. A cold shiver rolled across every spine in the room. From the pitch-black hallway came a faint, dragging sound, like someone sliding their feet across the floor. Slow, unsteady. Each movement scraped against the silence. Grayson whispered, "Is someone in my house?" Ms. Evelyn did not answer. The dragging sound stopped right outside the nursery door. Everyone held their breath. Then, very slowly, something tapped against the doorframe. One tap, Then another. Then another. A steady knocking that felt nothing like a human hand. Too heavy. Too slow. Tap, tap, tap. Grayson's voice trembled. Who's there? No response. Just one long, shaky exhale from somewhere in the dark hallway. The triplets stayed silent, still staring at Evelyn, their tiny bodies relaxing as if the scary noise didn't matter. Evelyn didn't take her eyes off the doorway. "Stay behind me," she murmured. But Grayson stepped forward. He was the owner of one of the richest estates in New York. He wouldn't let fear control him in his own home. He reached for the wall, searching for the manual power reset switch he installed last year. Before his fingers could touch the panel, a sudden flash of light burst from outside. A lightning bolt that lit the hallway for half a second. And in that half second, they all saw it. A tall figure stood at the end of the hallway, its body hidden in shadow. It was not facing them, but its head was turned backward, looking directly into the nursery with glowing eyes. Grayson stumbled back and nearly fell. The lightning faded. The hallway went dark again. The dragging sound started once more. Evelyn touched the billionaire's arm. "Don't move," she said softly. "You'll make it worse." "What do you know about this?" he whispered sharply. Evelyn stayed quiet. The dragging sound grew louder, closer. Then suddenly it stopped. Silence. A tense, crushing silence that made the air feel heavy. After a few seconds, the lights flickered back on. First weakly, then fully. The hallway lit up bright and white, showing clear polished floors and clean walls. But no figure, no shadows, no footprints, nothing. It was as if nothing had been there at all. The guards rushed toward the hallway, checking every corner, opening every door, pulling out their weapons. "Clear!" one shouted. "Clear!" echoed another. The house was spotless and empty, but no one in the nursery believed that. Grayson rubbed his forehead, trying to understand. "I'm calling the surveillance team. I want every camera checked." "That won't help," Evelyn said quietly. He turned sharply toward her. "Why not?" "Because what you saw," she said softly, "doesn't show up on cameras." The room went silent. Grayson stared at her, trying to figure her out. "What are you talking about?" he asked. "You were calm the whole time, as if you knew what was happening." Evelyn didn't deny it. Before she could answer, Lily, the smallest of the triplets, lifted her tiny arms toward her nanny. A soft gurgle came from her lips, almost like she was trying to say something. Evelyn leaned over and gently picked her up, cradling her against her chest. Lily rested her head on Evelyn's shoulder, peaceful and quiet. Grayson watched with confusion and something else, fear. "You silenced them. They only stop crying around you. What did you do to my children?" Evelyn looked at him with steady eyes. "Nothing harmful," she said. "They're safe. That is what matters tonight." "That's not an answer." Before she could speak again, a guard rushed back into the nursery, breathing hard. "Sir, you need to see this." "What now?" Grayson demanded. The guard swallowed. "It's the cameras, sir." Grayson followed him into the security room. The rest of the staff stayed behind, except for Evelyn, who remained with the triplets. The security screens flickered with static, switching between channels. One camera, the one pointing directly at the nursery hallway, kept glitching. The guard played the last few minutes of footage. The hallway was normal, clean, empty. Then suddenly, the screen exploded into white light and static. When it cleared, the camera view showed something that made Grayson step back in shock. Behind the nursery door, only visible for 1 second, was a tall, dark shape standing perfectly still, its head bent in the wrong direction, exactly where they had seen it with their own eyes. Then it vanished. Grayson stared at the screen, unable to speak. His heart hammered against his ribs. That thing was real. "Yes, sir," the guard whispered. "But that's not the part you need to worry about." The guard pressed pause, and right behind the shadowy figure, something else appeared. Something Grayson hadn't noticed before. It was faint, blurry, but clear enough to send cold chills through his entire body. A tiny handprint, a baby's handprint, pressed on the inside of the nursery hallway wall, far too high for any of the triplets to reach. Grayson felt the room tilt. "What does that mean?" he whispered. The guard didn't answer, because he didn't know. And before Grayson could gather his thoughts, a sudden scream came from upstairs. The kind of scream that made the whole house jump. A woman yelled, "Someone help! It's in the room!" Grayson froze. The scream came from the guest room, where one of the staff slept. No one moved at first. Then the scream came again, louder, choking, terrified. "Please, it's in here with me." The scream echoed through the mansion so loudly that even the guards who prided themselves on bravery jumped. Grayson Cole bolted out of the security room, his feet pounding against the polished floor. The house lights flickered again as he sprinted toward the grand staircase. The staff scattered behind him, some running, some too scared to move. "Room 14!" a guard shouted. The scream came from room 14. Room 14 was on the second floor, just down the hall from the triplets' nursery. It was where Carla, one of the younger maids, slept. Carla was kind, always smiling, always humming as she worked. The idea of her screaming like that made everyone's stomach twist. As they reached the top of the stairs, another cry pierced the air. But this one wasn't loud, it was small, weak, terrified. "Carla, open the door!" Grayson yelled. A guard grabbed the doorknob and tried to twist it, but it wouldn't move. "Locked from the inside. Then break it." Two guards slammed their shoulders against the door. The wood shook but didn't crack. They hit it again and again until finally, crack! The door snapped open, swinging inward with a loud boom. Everyone froze. The room was a mess. The curtains were ripped. The lamp lay shattered on the floor. Carla's shoes were scattered as if she had run in panic. But the most terrifying thing, Carla was standing in the corner, facing the wall. Her back was to them. Her fingers were pressed flat against the wallpaper. Her hair hung over her face, and she wasn't moving. "Carla?" Grayson whispered. No answer. A guard stepped forward slowly. "Miss, are you hurt?" Carla didn't turn around. She didn't speak. She didn't even breathe loudly. The guard reached out and gently touched her shoulder. Carla twisted around so suddenly that everyone in the room jumped back. Her eyes were wide, too wide. Her pupils were small like pinpoints. Her mouth hung open, trembling. But she didn't scream again. She whispered. "It was watching me." "Who?" Grayson asked, his voice tight. Carla lifted a shaking hand and pointed toward her bed. Everyone turned. The blankets were torn. The pillow was slashed straight down the middle. But scarier than that was the wall behind the bed. There, smeared across the paint, were 5 long black marks. Like claw marks. The guards pulled Carla away from the wall. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor, shaking hard. "It touched me," she whispered. "I felt it breathing behind me. I felt its hand on my back. It said my name." The room went silent. No one knew what to say. One of the guards whispered, "Sir, this is not normal. We need to call the police." "No," Evelyn's calm voice said behind them. Everyone turned to see her standing in the doorway, holding baby Lily against her chest. Her presence brought a strange quiet over the room. Even Carla stopped shaking for a moment. Grayson glared at her. "Why not? There's something in my house attacking my staff. The police can't help with something they can't understand," Evelyn replied softly. Grayson walked toward her, his voice trembling with confusion and anger. "You keep talking like you know something. Tell me what is going on." Evelyn looked around at the terrified staff, the ripped sheets, Carla's trembling hands. Then she spoke quietly, her voice steady. "There is something here that has been disturbed." "Disturbed?" Grayson snapped. "This is a house, not a graveyard." Evelyn didn't flinch. "Pain doesn't care where it lives." The room fell silent again. Carla whispered. "It said my name. It whispered it right into my ear." Evelyn kneeled beside Carla. "It won't come back for you," she said gently. "Not tonight." Carla started crying softly. Grayson turned to his head guard, Marcus. "Take Carla to the medic room. I want someone with her at all times. Yes, sir. As the guards helped Carla up and out of the room, the rest of the staff followed slowly, some whispering prayers, some shaking, some refusing to look back at the claw marks on the wall. Soon, only Grayson and Evelyn remained in the shattered room. Grayson stared at her. Tell me the truth. Right now. Evelyn gently rocked baby Lily, who was half asleep in her arms. The children, she said quietly. They're connected to this. Grayson's heart stopped for a second. What do you mean connected? Their birth wasn't simple, was it? Evelyn asked without looking at him. There were complications. Grayson swallowed hard. Yes. But how do you know that? I can hear it, she said softly. He stared at her. Hear what? The echo, she replied. Grayson stepped back. Stop talking like that. I need real answers. Evelyn finally looked up at him. Her eyes were calm, steady, almost too wise. There is something tied to your family, Mr. Cole. Something that didn't start tonight. Something that's been waiting. A chill crawled up his spine. Waiting for what? He whispered. Evelyn paused, then said gently, for them. Before Grayson could say anything, a loud crash came from downstairs, like something heavy falling over. Then another crash, and another. The whole mansion shook. What was that? Grayson gasped. A guard shouted from the hallway. Sir, you need to get downstairs right now. Something's happening in the main hall. Evelyn shifted Lily in her arms. Go, she said, but don't touch whatever you see. Grayson didn't want to leave her, but the screams echoing from downstairs forced him to run. He bolted toward the stairs with 2 guards behind him. When he reached the bottom floor, he froze. The giant chandelier in the main hall, worth nearly $500,000, was swaying violently, as if someone had hit it, but no one had touched it. Below it, furniture was overturned, tables broken, and shattered glass scattered across the marble floor. But that wasn't the scariest part. Right in the center of the chaos, something was written on the floor in long, black, smeared letters. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next powerful billionaire story. Grayson stepped closer. His hands shook. His voice cracked. Who did this? A guard whispered. Sir, look. Grayson stared at the words. 3 words. 3 simple, chilling words. They are mine. The air felt colder. The house felt smaller. Something unseen moved through the hall like a cold wind. And then, boom! The giant chandelier snapped from the ceiling and fell straight toward Grayson's head. The chandelier fell so fast that Grayson barely had time to blink. 1 second it was hanging high above the marble floor, and the next it came crashing down with a violent burst of light and shattering glass. The guards screamed his name as they dove toward him. A strong force shoved Grayson sideways. He hit the ground hard, rolling across the floor as the massive chandelier slammed into the place where he had been standing just a heartbeat earlier. The crash shook the entire mansion, sending tiny crystals flying like sharp rain. When the dust settled, the guards scrambled to their feet. Sir, are you okay? Grayson sat up slowly, coughing from the dust cloud. His heart pounded wildly. Who pushed me? He gasped. The guards exchanged confused looks. No one touched you, sir, one said. Grayson's face drained of all color, because he knew he felt it. That push wasn't human. A cold wind swept across the hall, swirling through the broken glass, making the chandelier crystals clink together softly like chimes. The sound was eerie and too calm for the destruction around them. Grayson looked around, his voice shaking. This thing is trying to kill me. One guard swallowed nervously. Sir, whatever is happening here, it's not normal. Another guard whispered, should we evacuate? Get everyone outside. Before Grayson could answer, the walls seemed to creak, like the house itself was breathing. The lights flickered 1 time, 2 times, then steadied again. A strange hush fell over the mansion. Something had shifted. Something was waiting. One guard stepped forward, worried. Sir, maybe we should get Ms. Ward and the babies out of here. Grayson hesitated. He didn't trust Evelyn. She knew something she wasn't saying. But he also couldn't deny one thing. When she was near the babies, nothing bad happened to them. He stood up slowly, brushing dust from his shirt. "Bring her down. Now." The guards nodded and rushed upstairs. Grayson stared at the words written on the floor again. "They are mine." His hands trembled. Who was claiming his children? Why? And how did Evelyn know anything about this? He rubbed his forehead, trying to calm himself, but his mind was racing. He heard footsteps approaching. When he looked up, Evelyn was descending the stairs, carrying Lily while another maid carried Lucas and Liam. The babies were calm, almost too calm for what was happening around them. Evelyn reached the ground floor, her expression unreadable as she took in the destroyed chandelier and the message on the floor. Grayson pointed toward it. "Explain this." Evelyn looked at the words for a long moment before speaking. "It's what I feared." Grayson stepped closer. "What do you mean feared? What is going on?" She looked him directly in the eyes. "Something from before their birth has followed them here." The guards glanced at each other. Grayson's voice rose. "Before their birth? Evelyn, stop being mysterious and tell me the truth." She took a slow breath. "Mr. Cole, there are things connected to life that doctors cannot explain. Things tied to the emotions in a home, the choices people make, and the promises they break." Grayson stiffened. "What promises? I don't break promises." Evelyn held his gaze. "Not all promises are spoken out loud." Grayson felt a cold shiver crawl up his back. "Evelyn, if you know something, you need to say it plainly." Before she could answer, Liam, the quietest of the triplets, began to whimper. Then Lucas. Then Lily. Their cries rose fast. Sharp, loud, panicked. Not normal crying. Not hungry crying. This was fear. Pure fear. The air in the hall grew colder. The lights dimmed. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the floor. Then all three babies turned their faces toward the same corner of the hall. A dark corner where no one stood. Grayson's skin prickled. "What are they looking at?" Evelyn carefully lowered Lily into her crib basket. "Everyone step back," she whispered. The guards automatically stepped backward. Grayson stayed still, frozen between fear and disbelief. Evelyn walked slowly toward the corner. Every step she took made the lights flicker again. She stopped when she reached the shadowed edge of the wall. "Show yourself," she said softly. A deep, cold chill swept across the hall. One guard whispered, "Oh my God," because the shadow on the wall moved, even though nothing stood in front of it. The shape stretched long and thin, then twisted like something was trying to crawl out of the wall itself. The outline looked like a tall figure, too tall, with long arms that brushed the floor. The figure's head bent slowly, unnaturally, cracking as it tilted sideways. Grayson's breath hitched. Evelyn didn't move. "You have no right to them." A low rumble echoed through the hall, like a growl but deeper, less human. The shadow grew darker, thicker. The temperature dropped so fast frost began forming on the broken glass near the floor. Evelyn lifted her chin. "Leave this house." The shadow lunged toward her. The guards shouted and stepped forward, but before they reached her, a blast of freezing air slammed them back. The shadow rushed at Evelyn like a wave of black smoke, but it stopped inches from her face, like something invisible blocked it. The shadow hissed, twisting violently, unable to touch her. Evelyn whispered, "You can't cross me. You know that." Grayson's heart raced. Her voice wasn't angry, just firm, calm, like she was speaking to a misbehaving child. The shadow screeched. The lights exploded, glass bursting from the bulbs. The babies wailed. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the shadow vanished. The lights flickered back to life. Warmth returned to the room. Everyone stood frozen. Evelyn turned around and walked back to the triplets. Her hands shook a little now, just a little. She picked up Lily first, calming her with gentle pats. Grayson approached slowly. "What was that?" Evelyn didn't look up. "Something that believes these children belong to it." Grayson swallowed. "Why?" Why them? She lifted her eyes, meeting his with a seriousness that made his heart drop. Because someone made a choice before they were born, a choice tied to a price. And now that price is being collected. Grayson stepped back. Who made the choice? Evelyn hesitated. Then she answered quietly, You did, Mr. Cole. Before he could speak, before he could deny it, the triplets began crying again. Louder, sharper, and this time their tiny bodies shook as if something unseen was touching them. One guard gasped, Sir, look at their cribs. Grayson spun around and froze, because tiny handprints, black, smoky, child-sized, were appearing all over the cribs, touching the babies, reaching for them. The black handprints hovered over the cribs like shadows made alive. They moved slowly, pressing lightly against the soft blankets before vanishing into the air as if the babies themselves were drawing them. Grayson's hands shook as he approached, and every step made his stomach twist. Evelyn, what's happening? He shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Evelyn stood between him and the cribs, calm but alert. They are testing the children, Grayson. Whatever this is, it wants to see how they respond. How do you know that? He demanded. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned over Lily, whispering softly in a language Grayson didn't recognize. The baby stopped crying instantly. Liam and Lucas followed, their screams replaced by soft coos. Grayson stepped closer, unable to stop himself. But why are the babies the target? Why would something like this care about my children? Evelyn looked at him with a solemn expression. Because the triplets carry something unique. They were born under circumstances that few understand. That's why I was brought here. Grayson's jaw tightened. Brought here? You mean, you knew something like this might happen? Yes, she said softly, lifting her head. I didn't know the exact moment or form, but I knew the children would face a threat like this. Before he could respond, a faint scratching noise echoed from the hallway outside the nursery. Everyone froze. It wasn't loud, just a whisper against the polished floors, but it carried the weight of something large and deliberate. The guards raised their weapons, stepping toward the door cautiously. Wait, Evelyn said, placing a steady hand on Grayson's arm. Do not engage it. Why not? He yelled, frustration and fear blending. It's trying to hurt my kids. Because it doesn't attack without reason, she replied. It's measuring, watching. It won't make the mistake until it knows. Grayson's hands shook as he clenched them. Then what do we do? Stand here and wait for it to strike. Evelyn looked toward him, her eyes sharp. No, we prepare. Calm the children. That is the only way. She walked between the cribs and the shadows, her presence commanding. Grayson watched in awe as the babies settled instantly in her arms. Liam's little hands reached for her. Lucas rested his head on her shoulder, and Lily nestled in her arms. The scratching grew louder. Something was moving closer. The lights flickered again. Shadows twisted unnaturally across the walls. Then, a deep, chilling voice whispered, so faint that at first no one thought they heard it. They belong to me. The hairs on Grayson's neck stood up. His voice caught in his throat. Did you hear that? Evelyn nodded slightly. Yes, and it is testing you too. What do you mean, testing me? She took a slow breath. You will not always be able to protect them. This entity wants to see if your heart is pure, if your choices honor the children. If you falter, it will know. Grayson's knees weakened. I don't understand. You will, she said quietly. But not yet. The scratching suddenly stopped. The air went still. It was an oppressive silence that made Grayson feel as though the house itself was holding its breath. Then, without warning, the nursery door slammed shut. The force rattled the walls and sent a cold draft through the room. Grayson lunged forward to open it, but Evelyn's hand stopped him. No! The air grew colder. Frost formed along the edges of the windows. The shadows in the corners of the room stretched toward the cribs, flickering like flames in a storm. A low growl, deep and rumbling, came from the darkness outside the nursery door. It was closer now, vibrating the very floor beneath their feet. The triplets began to whimper again, their small cries echoing through the room. Evelyn leaned over them, whispering softly, rocking them in her arms. Grayson's hands shook. "This is impossible. This can't be real." Evelyn didn't respond. She simply stared at the closed door, her body tense like a coiled spring. Then, a shadow moved across the hallway outside. It was massive, larger than any human could be, twisting unnaturally as it approached. The deep growl turned into a hiss, sharp and threatening. Grayson's heart pounded. "It's coming in." Evelyn held Lily closer. "It will not cross this threshold," she said firmly. "Not while I am here." Grayson's eyes widened. "You mean, you can stop it?" "I can delay it," she replied. "But not forever." The shadow slammed against the nursery door with a deafening crash. The sound made the glass frames in the room rattle violently. Frost spread quickly across the floor, and the air became so cold that their breath formed clouds. The triplets screamed, and Grayson grabbed them instinctively. Evelyn's voice cut through the chaos, calm but commanding. "Grayson, focus on them. Speak to them. Protect them with your heart, not your hands." "What do you mean?" he shouted. "Do not panic," she yelled back. "They feel your fear. Show them your love." Grayson's eyes welled with tears. He looked down at the babies in his arms, feeling the warmth of their small bodies against the icy air. He whispered their names, Liam, Lucas, Lily, over and over. He held them tight, speaking softly, repeating the only words he could think of. "I will protect you. I love you. I will not let anything hurt you." The screaming of the triplets shifted, softened, became quieter. The shadows outside the door hesitated. The growling dimmed, almost like the entity was considering their reaction. Grayson realized something in that moment. The babies could sense his fear, but more importantly, they could sense his love. The air in the nursery began to shift. The frost melted slightly. The shadows stretched but did not move forward. Evelyn stepped closer to him. "Good. Keep that feeling in your heart. Never stop. Never let them feel doubt. You are their shield." Grayson nodded, still whispering their names. The growl outside became a low hum, a vibration that shook through the walls but could not enter the nursery. For a moment, everything seemed calm. But then, without warning, the floor beneath the cribs trembled violently. A loud cracking sound filled the room as one of the cribs tilted dangerously to the side. Grayson screamed and lunged to steady it. The shadow outside slammed against the door again, harder this time, as if enraged by the baby's continued safety. The temperature dropped sharply, so cold that tears froze on Grayson's cheeks. The chandelier above shivered with each vibration, threatening to fall again. Evelyn stepped in front of the triplets, her silver hair catching the dim light. "It's testing limits," she whispered. "It will not stop until it breaks something or someone." Grayson's chest tightened. He clutched the babies and looked at Evelyn. "How do we make it stop? How do we get rid of it?" Evelyn shook her head slowly. "You cannot get rid of it. You can only protect them. And sometimes, you must wait for the right moment to act." Before Grayson could respond, a loud smash echoed from the hallway. The nursery door shuddered violently. Then a section of the wall near it cracked, sending dust and debris into the air. The triplets cried out in fear. Grayson froze, staring at the widening crack in horror. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next powerful billionaire story. The crack in the wall seemed to breathe, widening slowly as if the mansion itself was opening a wound. Dust fell from the ceiling like snow, swirling in the cold air, and the faint smell of smoke lingered as though something had burned somewhere nearby. Grayson Cole's hands shook violently as he held the triplets close. Liam, Lucas, and Lily clung to him instinctively, sensing the fear radiating from him. Evelyn stood in front of them, calm and unwavering, her silver hair glowing faintly under the flickering lights. "Keep them calm," she said softly, her voice steady like a rock amidst the chaos. "Speak to them. Let them feel your presence. Your fear will only feed it." Grayson swallowed hard, his throat tight. He could barely form the words. I won't let anything hurt you," he whispered repeatedly. "I'll protect you. I love you. You're safe. I promise." The baby's cries began to soften, tiny fingers gripping his shirt. But the strange energy in the room did not waver. The crack in the wall continued to widen, revealing dark, shifting shadows within it. The shadows swirled, forming shapes that were difficult to define. Sometimes humanoid, sometimes something else entirely. The guards had backed away, some clutching their weapons uselessly, their eyes wide in disbelief. Marcus, Grayson's head guard, whispered, "Sir, this isn't human. Nothing we've trained for can handle this." Grayson's jaw clenched. "Then we fight with what we have. We stay together. We protect the children." Evelyn stepped closer to the crack, her eyes narrowing. "It won't cross the threshold while I'm here, but it's testing every second, pushing boundaries. It's learning, and it's patient. Be ready for the next strike." Before anyone could respond, the shadows began to shift faster. They formed a face, distorted, dark, and horrifying, with glowing eyes that locked on the triplets. Grayson froze, staring in terror. The face leered, and a low, guttural voice filled the room. "They belong to me." The words seemed to echo off the walls, vibrating in their chests. The chandelier above quivered violently, scattering shards of crystal across the floor. The temperature dropped sharply. The warm air from the nursery heaters could not compete with the icy cold that invaded every corner of the hall. Grayson's heart pounded. He had to do something. "We're not letting you take them," he shouted, stepping toward the crack, holding the babies close. Evelyn's hand shot out, stopping him. "Do not engage it directly. It will exploit any hesitation, any fear." The shadows pulsed and writhed, moving closer to the cribs. Liam began to cry again, a piercing wail that made Grayson's stomach twist. Lucas and Lily followed, their cries overlapping in a chaotic chorus. Evelyn knelt, her voice soothing as she whispered in a language Grayson could not understand. The baby's cries softened slightly, but the shadows recoiled momentarily, hissing in response. Grayson felt a strange sensation, like invisible hands pressing against his chest, trying to push him backward. He stumbled but caught himself. The force was powerful, unnatural, and terrifying. "Grayson," Evelyn warned, "do not let it overwhelm you." He shook his head, tears streaming down his face. I won't. I will protect them no matter what." The shadows hesitated, then surged forward again, faster this time. One long, clawed limb stretched out, reaching toward the babies. Grayson instinctively shoved the cribs back, but the shadow moved faster than his eyes could follow. A deafening crack echoed through the hall as one of the walls near the nursery floor split, creating a small gap that seemed to swallow the air around it. From that gap, a dark tendril lashed toward the cribs. Grayson lunged forward, pressing his body against the babies to shield them. Evelyn moved like lightning, placing her hands on the shadow's path. She whispered something sharp and commanding, and the tendril recoiled violently, as though burned. Grayson stared, astonished. How are you doing that?" Evelyn didn't answer, her focus unwavering as she repeated the words. The tendril shrank back into the crack, which trembled violently. The shadows inside the fissure writhed and screamed, a sound that was not human, not animal, but something beyond comprehension. The temperature slowly began to rise as the shadows retreated slightly. Grayson felt the weight on his chest lessen. The babies were safe, for the moment, but the relief was short-lived. From the far end of the hallway, a loud crashing sound erupted. One of the guards screamed. The main staircase railing snapped with a deafening crack, and the heavy wooden stairs tilted, as though something massive had slammed into them. Grayson's blood ran cold. "It's attacking the house itself now." Evelyn kept her calm. "It will keep attacking. It wants to see how far it can push us. Stand firm. Protect the children at all costs." Grayson took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had to think. The babies' lives depended on him. But every instinct screamed that he was powerless against this force. The ceiling lights flickered violently, then went out completely. Darkness enveloped the nursery and the hall outside, broken only by the faint glow emanating from Evelyn's hair and the night lights in the cribs. The shadows surged through the darkness, swirling like a storm of black smoke. The whispers returned, growing louder. "They belong to me." Grayson gritted his teeth. He would not let fear rule him. He knelt beside Liam's crib, pressing the baby close to his chest. "I love you. You are safe. Nothing can take you from me," he whispered. The whispers faltered for a moment. Evelyn's voice rose in a melodic chant, resonating through the dark, and the shadows hesitated. But the moment was fleeting. With a thunderous roar, part of the hallway wall exploded inward, sending dust, debris, and splinters flying. The shards hit the floor near the cribs, scattering dangerously close. Grayson instinctively rolled with the babies, shielding them with his body. The dust settled, and the shadows receded slightly. But Grayson noticed something horrifying. Tiny black handprints, smoky and fleeting, appeared on the crib's surfaces, reaching for the babies again. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "It's probing," she whispered, "testing their defenses. It will not relent until it finds a weakness." Grayson clenched his fists, rage mixing with fear. "It will not find one," he shouted. "I will never let it touch them." The shadows surged once more. This time, one long, thin appendage stretched across the floor, aiming for Lucas. Grayson dove forward, lifting Lucas above his head. The appendage missed, hitting the floor with a sizzle like cold fire. Liam and Lily cried out, terrified by the sudden movement. Grayson held them both, whispering soothing words as Evelyn placed her hands on his shoulders. "You are doing well," she said calmly. "Do not falter. Keep your love strong. That is their shield." But the mansion itself seemed to groan in response, the walls vibrating, the floors trembling. The main chandelier shook dangerously again. Grayson realized that the entity wasn't just testing them. It was attacking the very foundation of the house, the world around them. It was powerful, beyond human comprehension. Another loud crash echoed through the hall. One of the large doors flew open violently, slamming against the wall. Dust rained down, and the air grew even colder. The babies screamed, and Grayson's heart twisted in terror. Evelyn spoke sharply, her voice commanding, "Stand back!" From the open door, a dark figure emerged, not fully formed, but distinct. Its eyes glowed with a pale, sickly light. Its limbs twisted unnaturally, long and skeletal, ending in clawed fingers. The shadows writhed around it like living smoke. Grayson's hands shook violently. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. The entity glared at him, as if measuring his worth. "You cannot have them," he shouted, finding his voice. The entity hissed, a sound that curdled blood. Then, with a speed that made Grayson's head spin, it surged forward, moving across the floor like liquid shadow, reaching toward the cribs. Evelyn stepped in front of the babies. Her hands glowed faintly as she whispered another command. The entity screeched in response, recoiling slightly, then surged again. Grayson realized something terrifying. This battle was far from over, and every second, the entity grew stronger, feeding on the fear, the uncertainty, the chaos. Suddenly, the floor beneath them cracked. A deep, gaping fissure opened, running from the nursery to the main hall. Grayson barely jumped back in time, clutching the babies. The entity hissed, retreating slightly, its glowing eyes fixed on Evelyn. Evelyn whispered softly, almost to herself, "Not yet, not yet." Grayson looked at her. "What do you mean? What's not yet?" Before she could answer, the ground shook violently. The fissure widened, and from it, another shadowy figure began to rise, bigger, more terrifying than the first. The babies screamed, and Grayson's blood ran cold. The second shadow rose from the deep crack in the floor with a speed that made Grayson's stomach lurch. It was enormous, taller than any man, its limbs twisting unnaturally, ending in jagged, claw-like hands. Its eyes glowed a pale green, piercing the darkness like twin torches. The first shadow hovered nearby, circling the nursery like a predator waiting for its chance. The two of them together created a terrifying presence that seemed to crush the very air around them. Grayson stumbled back, clutching the triplets tightly to his chest. Liam, Lucas, and Lily whimpered in fear, tiny fists gripping his shirt. He could feel their panic, their small hearts beating rapidly against his own. Evelyn's voice cut through the terror, calm and commanding. Do not falter. Your fear gives them strength. Focus on your love for the children. Grayson's mind spun. How could he protect them against something he couldn't even comprehend? His heart pounded in his chest like a drum. He whispered softly, I love you. I will protect you. Nothing will harm you. The shadows hissed in response, a low, vibrating sound that made the floor tremble. The first shadow reached toward the cribs again, long, thin fingers stretching like black smoke. Grayson stepped in front, pressing his body against the cribs, his own fear threatening to break him. Stop! He shouted, his voice cracking. You will not take them. Evelyn moved closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. Good. Speak with your heart, not your voice. Let them feel your love, your protection. That is the only thing they understand. The shadows recoiled slightly, like wounded animals, but they did not retreat. The larger shadow slithered closer, its glowing eyes fixed on Evelyn. The first shadow, smaller but no less terrifying, circled the cribs again, testing, probing, seeking a weakness. Grayson's hands shook, but he held firm. I am their father. You cannot have them. I will protect them no matter what. A chilling wind swept through the room, and the chandelier above quivered violently. Dust and shattered glass fell around them like a storm of needles. The temperature dropped sharply, frost forming on the edges of the cribs and the walls. Suddenly, the larger shadow lunged. Grayson barely had time to react. He shoved the cribs backward, pressing his body in front of them. The shadow's clawed hands scraped the floor inches away from him. A deep, resonating hiss filled the nursery. It sounded like a scream, a growl, and a whisper all at once. Evelyn's voice rose above it, sharp and commanding. Enough! The shadows froze in place. Evelyn stepped forward, silver hair glinting in the dim light. She whispered words in a language that felt older than time itself. The shadows writhed, twisting violently, their glowing eyes narrowing. Then, slowly, they receded a few steps, circling the room, unable to advance past the threshold Evelyn had claimed. Grayson's chest heaved. The babies were safe for now, but he knew this was far from over. How can you stop them like that? He asked, his voice trembling. Evelyn did not answer immediately. She bent down, speaking softly to the triplets. Liam's cries ceased, replaced by small, shivering breaths. Lucas pressed his tiny head against her shoulder, and Lily nestled closer to her. Evelyn's hands glowed faintly as she touched each of them. They can sense protection, she finally said, looking at Grayson. They can feel fear and love alike. But love is stronger. That is why I am here. Grayson nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. But how long can this hold? Evelyn's eyes darkened. Not forever. This presence will keep testing, probing. It will find any hesitation, any doubt, and it will strike. Before Grayson could respond, the floor beneath the hallway cracked again, the fissure widening. The first shadow hissed, and the second shadow shrieked as it emerged fully from the floor, towering above everyone in the nursery. Its jagged claws scraped the marble, sending sparks of ice and energy flying. The temperature plummeted, freezing their breath in the air. The walls of the nursery vibrated, cracking slightly along the edges. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling. The babies cried again, fear radiating from them like waves. Grayson pressed them closer to his chest, whispering desperately, I'm here. I'm here. Nothing will hurt you. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice commanding. Do not let them feel your fear. Focus. Protect them with your heart, not your hands. The shadows lunged. Grayson stumbled back, clutching the babies, but Evelyn was ready. She placed her hands on the nearest shadow, speaking in that strange, melodic language. The shadow shrieked, recoiling violently as if burned. Focus, Grayson. Focus, Evelyn shouted. Do not falter. Grayson's heart raced. He closed his eyes, trying to block out the darkness around them. He concentrated on the warmth of the triplets, on their tiny hands clutching his shirt, on their small, innocent faces. His fear began to melt into love, pure and unwavering. The shadows paused, hesitating. The first shadow circled the cribs, but its movements slowed. The larger shadow's glowing eyes flickered, its form quivering. It hissed, frustrated, then recoiled slightly. Grayson realized something. The shadows responded to emotion. They could sense fear and love. He straightened, his voice steady and calm. I love you, Liam. I love you, Lucas. I love you, Lily. Nothing will harm you. You are safe. I will protect you. The shadows shrieked again, their forms twisting violently. The larger shadow slammed its claw into the floor, cracking the marble, but it could not advance further. The first shadow circled the cribs one last time before retreating slightly into the darkness. Grayson's chest heaved with relief. The babies were safe, for now. But he knew this was only a temporary victory. Evelyn looked at him, her eyes piercing. Do you understand now? The entity tests limits. It will not stop until it finds a weakness. And it grows stronger with every moment you hesitate. Grayson nodded, determination building within him. I understand. I will not hesitate. I will protect them no matter what. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the main hall. The first shadow lunged toward the door, its glowing eyes fixed on Evelyn. The second shadow followed, its massive claws scraping the marble. Grayson's heart pounded. No, I won't let them. Before he could finish, the hallway wall exploded inward. Debris flew everywhere, and a blast of icy wind swept through the room. Grayson stumbled, clutching the babies tightly. Evelyn stepped in front of them, her hands glowing with a faint light. She whispered words that resonated through the room, and the shadows shrieked, recoiling slightly. The babies cried, their tiny bodies trembling. Grayson pressed them closer, whispering, I am here. I will not let anything happen to you. The entity hissed, a sound that vibrated through the walls and floor. Its glowing eyes locked on Evelyn, and then on Grayson. You cannot protect them forever, it whispered, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Grayson's hands shook, but he held firm. I will protect them as long as I live. The shadows lunged again, but Evelyn's voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding. Enough! The shadows froze, their forms twisting violently, then slowly receding into the cracks in the floor and walls. The temperature began to rise, the frost melting slightly. The babies quieted, sensing the temporary safety. Grayson sank to his knees, exhausted, holding the triplets close. This is only the beginning, isn't it? Evelyn nodded solemnly. Yes, and it will only grow stronger. But for now, they are safe. Grayson looked around at the damaged nursery, the shattered chandeliers, the cracks in the walls, and the frost lingering in the corners. He realized something terrifying. The entity would never stop. It was patient, it was powerful, and it wanted his children. But he also realized something else. He had a power of his own. Their love, his protection, his unwavering presence. And as long as he held that, the shadows could never truly claim them. Before anyone could speak, a loud, rumbling sound echoed from the cracks in the floor. The shadows began to stir again, a warning that this battle was far from over. Grayson held the triplets close, his heart pounding. I will not fail you, I promise. The nursery lay in partial ruin. Frost clung to the walls, broken glass sparkled across the marble floor, and the air was so cold it felt like it could cut through skin. The triplets, Liam, Lucas, and Lily, clung to Grayson's chest, trembling and whimpering softly. Their cries had quieted, replaced by soft whimpers, but the fear radiating from them was tangible. Grayson's arms ached from holding them so tightly, but he refused to let go. Every muscle in his body screamed for rest, for even a brief moment of safety, but he knew that was impossible. The shadows outside were patient. They were waiting, and they would strike again. Evelyn stood in front of him, calm and focused, silver hair glinting faintly in the dim light. "You are doing well," she said softly. "But this is only the beginning. It will not stop until it has learned everything about them. About you." Grayson's jaw tightened. "How can it learn anything when I keep them close? When I protect them?" Evelyn shook her head slightly. "It watches not just their bodies, Grayson, but the energy around them, the fear, the doubt, the love. It is patient and it is clever. You cannot let even a single hesitation slip through." Grayson nodded, swallowing hard. He took a deep breath and pressed his lips against Liam's tiny forehead. "I won't hesitate. I will never let anything touch you. Or Lucas. Or Lily. I promise." The shadows outside stirred. Their presence was heavy, oppressive. The air vibrated with a low hum, like the sound of 1,000 whispers all speaking at once. The babies flinched, sensing the darkness pressing against the walls, the floor, the very air around them. Grayson's mind raced. He needed a plan, but there was no plan. No weapon, no strategy could fight something like this. Only one thing could protect the children: presence, love, unwavering focus. He had to be strong, not just for them, but for himself. The first shadow emerged from the crack in the hallway, its glowing eyes fixed on the cribs. Its form was fluid, almost smoke-like, yet every movement was deliberate, menacing. The second shadow followed, larger, more terrifying, its long claws scraping the marble floor as it advanced. Grayson pressed the triplets closer to his chest. "You will not touch them," he whispered, voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "You hear me? You will not." Evelyn stepped forward, raising her hands. A faint glow emanated from her palms, illuminating the nursery with a soft, warm light. "Keep speaking," she urged. "Their energy feeds off yours. Let them feel the strength of your heart." Grayson inhaled sharply, closing his eyes. He focused entirely on the babies, on their warmth, their life, their innocence. He spoke softly, repeating their names over and over. "Liam, Lucas, Lily, I love you. You are safe. I will protect you. Always." The shadows hissed, recoiling slightly as if the words struck them. But they did not retreat completely. They circled the nursery, probing for weaknesses, testing the boundaries Evelyn had established. A sudden crash came from the ceiling. The chandelier, weakened from earlier strikes, swayed dangerously. Crystals shattered, scattering across the floor. Grayson instinctively pressed the triplets closer, shielding them with his body. Evelyn's voice rang out, commanding and sharp. "Do not let fear take hold. Stand firm." Grayson nodded, his teeth clenched. "I will not falter. I will protect them." The shadows lunged again, faster this time. The first shadow's long, clawed fingers reached for Liam, while the second shadow barreled toward Lucas. Grayson reacted instinctively, moving with lightning speed, shielding the babies with his body. The shadows recoiled slightly but circled back immediately, relentless. Evelyn whispered a chant, her voice weaving through the nursery like a thread of light. The shadows hissed and shrieked in response, writhing violently. The air shimmered around them, the temperature dropping sharply. Frost formed on the broken glass and the marble floor. Grayson's heart pounded, but he did not falter. He held the triplets tightly, whispering soothing words, repeating his promise over and over. "You are safe. I will protect you. Nothing will harm you." For a moment it seemed to work. The shadows froze, hesitation flickering in their forms. The babies quieted slightly, their tiny hands clutching his shirt. But the pause was brief. From the crack in the floor, a new shadow began to emerge. This one was different, larger, darker, and more formless. It moved like liquid, spreading across the marble like smoke, filling every corner of the room. The first two shadows shrank back slightly, almost submissively, allowing the new figure to take center stage. Grayson's breath hitched. This presence was more powerful than anything he had faced so far. It radiated malice, intelligence, and patience. Its glowing eyes locked on Evelyn, then on him, then on the babies. "You cannot protect them forever," it whispered, its voice echoing in every corner, vibrating the floor, the walls, the ceiling. Grayson's chest tightened. "I will protect them, no matter what." Evelyn's hands glowed brighter as she stepped forward, placing herself directly between the entity and the triplets. "Focus your love," she commanded. "Do not let fear in. They are your shield." Grayson inhaled deeply, closing his eyes. He pressed the babies closer, feeling their warmth, their life, their innocence. His fear melted into something stronger, pure, unwavering love. The entity recoiled slightly, its glowing eyes narrowing. The shadows around it hissed and twisted violently. But it did not retreat. It was testing him, measuring the strength of his heart, the depth of his love, the resilience of his promise. A sudden, violent tremor shook the nursery. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the floor cracked slightly beneath his feet. The entity's form shifted, extending long, dark limbs toward the cribs. Grayson's body tensed, every muscle ready to shield the triplets. "Hold steady," Evelyn shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Do not falter." Grayson repeated their names, whispering promises of protection and love. Liam, Lucas, and Lily's cries softened, their tiny bodies trembling in his arms. The warmth of their lives, their innocence, formed a barrier stronger than any weapon. The entity shrieked, its form writhing violently, but it could not cross the threshold Evelyn had established. The first two shadows circled, still menacing, but they hesitated, constrained by the force of his presence. Then, without warning, part of the ceiling collapsed, sending a cloud of dust and debris down onto the nursery floor. Grayson lunged forward, shielding the triplets, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on him. The shards of crystal and wood clattered around him, but he did not let go. Evelyn's hands glowed brighter, chanting words that seemed to vibrate through the very foundation of the mansion. The entity shrieked again, recoiling violently, but it did not disappear. Its eyes glowed brighter, more focused, almost intelligent. Grayson's heart pounded. He realized something terrifying. The entity was learning. Every act of fear, every hesitation, every movement was being noted, analyzed, and remembered. It was patient, relentless, and calculating. But he also realized something else. So was he. Every word of love, every promise, every heartbeat of protection was also a force, a shield, a weapon against the darkness. The nursery shook again. The floor trembled beneath him, and another fissure began to form. The shadows hissed and shrieked, their forms writhing violently, but they did not advance. Evelyn's presence, the warmth of his love for the triplets, held them back. Grayson pressed the babies closer, whispering softly, repeating his promise. "You are safe. I will protect you. Nothing will harm you." The entity shrieked one last time, a sound that reverberated through the walls and floor, then retreated slightly, withdrawing into the cracks and shadows. The temperature rose slowly, frost melting from the walls and floor. The babies quieted, sensing the temporary safety. Grayson sank to his knees, exhausted, holding the triplets tightly. Evelyn approached him, her hands still glowing faintly. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "It will return. It will test again. But for now, they are safe." Grayson looked around at the damaged nursery, the cracks in the walls, the frost lingering in the corners. He knew this battle was far from over. The entity was patient. It was powerful, and it wanted his children. But he also knew something else. He had a power of his own. Their love, his protection, his unwavering presence. And as long as he held that, the shadows could never truly claim them. The triplets nestled against him, their tiny bodies trembling but alive. Grayson pressed a kiss to each forehead, whispering softly, "I will not fail you, I promise." A low rumble echoed from the cracks in the floor. The shadows began to stir again, a warning that this battle was far from over. Grayson's chest tightened, his arms aching, but he held firm. The nursery was silent now, but it was a heavy, tense silence. Dust still hung in the air, and shards of crystal glittered across the marble floor. The triplets, Liam, Lucas, and Lily, clung to Grayson's chest, small hands gripping his shirt, their faces pale but safe. He pressed them closer, feeling the warmth of their bodies against his own, a fragile shield against the darkness that lingered just beyond the nursery's threshold. Evelyn stood nearby, her silver hair shimmering faintly in the dim light. Her hands glowed softly as she observed the cracks in the walls and floor, her eyes calculating every shadow, every movement. "It will not stop testing," she said quietly. "Patience is its weapon. Fear is its weapon. But love can hold it at bay." Grayson nodded, swallowing hard. "I know. I feel it. I know we have to be strong. But it's exhausting. How can I stay strong forever?" "You don't have to do it alone," Evelyn replied, stepping closer. "I am here. You must focus your heart on the children. Let them feel your protection. That is the only thing that matters." He took a deep breath, closing his eyes, whispering softly to the triplets, "I love you. I will protect you. Nothing will harm you." For a brief moment, the nursery felt almost calm. The shadows had retreated slightly into the cracks, circling the room but not advancing. The baby's whimpers subsided, their tiny hands clutching his shirt as they slowly relaxed. But the calm was only temporary. A low, rumbling sound echoed from the fissure in the floor. Grayson's heart skipped a beat. He could feel the presence approaching, stronger and more focused than before. The floor cracked violently beneath them, dust and debris falling with a deafening roar. From the fissure emerged a shadow unlike any he had seen before. A towering, monstrous figure, its body a swirling mass of black mist and jagged claws. Its eyes glowed an intense green, piercing the darkness like twin beacons of malice. Grayson froze, clutching the triplets tightly. Liam, Lucas, and Lily whimpered, their tiny bodies trembling. The entity hissed, a sound that vibrated through the floor and walls, making the very air feel heavy and cold. "You cannot protect them forever," it whispered, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I will protect them," Grayson shouted, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. "No matter what, nothing will harm them." Evelyn stepped forward, her hands glowing brighter, illuminating the nursery with a soft, warm light. "Focus. Let your love be their shield." Grayson pressed the babies closer, closing his eyes. He whispered their names over and over. "Liam, Lucas, Lily, I love you. You are safe. I will protect you." The entity recoiled slightly, hissing, its glowing eyes narrowing. The shadows around it writhed violently but could not cross the threshold Evelyn had established. A loud crash came from the hallway. Part of the wall splintered inward, sending dust and debris flying. The floor trembled, and the temperature dropped sharply, frost forming along the edges of the room. Grayson held the triplets tightly, whispering over and over, repeating his promise. "I will protect you. Nothing will harm you. I love you." The entity shrieked, its form twisting violently. Its claws lashed out, scraping the marble floor, but it could not advance past Evelyn's protective threshold. Grayson realized something crucial. The entity was testing him, measuring his heart, the depth of his love, the strength of his promise. Every act of fear, every hesitation, gave it strength. But every word of love, every heartbeat of protection, weakened it. Suddenly, the floor beneath the nursery cracked again, a jagged fissure splitting the marble. The entity surged forward, its massive claws aiming directly for the cribs. Grayson lunged instinctively, pressing his body in front of the babies. Evelyn's voice rang out, sharp and commanding, "Hold steady! Do not falter!" He closed his eyes, focusing entirely on the triplets, on their warmth, their life, their innocence. He whispered again, his voice steady and calm, "You are safe. I will protect you. Nothing will harm you." The entity shrieked, recoiling, its glowing eyes flickering. The shadows twisted violently but could not cross the protective barrier. For a moment, the nursery was quiet except for the soft, steady breathing of the triplets. Grayson sank to his knees, exhausted but holding the babies tightly. He kissed their foreheads, whispering softly, "I will not fail you. I promise." Evelyn looked at him, her eyes serious. "This is only a temporary reprieve. It will return, stronger and more relentless. You must always be ready. But for now, they are safe." Just as he was beginning to catch his breath, a new sound echoed through the cracks in the walls. A faint, almost imperceptible scratching, followed by whispers in a language that chilled his blood. The shadows stirred again, circling the nursery, their forms twisting like smoke in the dim light. Grayson pressed the triplets closer, whispering their names softly. "I am here. I will protect you. Nothing will harm you." And then, without warning, the floor beneath them shook violently. A section of the nursery floor lifted slightly, then collapsed with a deafening crash, sending shards of marble and wood scattering. The triplets screamed, and Grayson's arms tightened around them. Evelyn stepped forward, chanting softly, her hands glowing brighter than ever. The shadows shrieked in response, twisting violently, but they could not advance past the protective barrier. Grayson realized with a mix of fear and determination. The entity would never stop. It was patient, relentless, and clever. But as long as he held his love for the triplets in his heart, as long as he refused to falter, they could not take them. He pressed their tiny bodies closer, whispering their names over and over. "Liam, Lucas, Lily, I will protect you. Always." The shadows hissed and shrieked, retreating slightly into the cracks, their glowing eyes watching him. Grayson's heart pounded, exhaustion threatening to take over, but he did not let go. He would not falter. He could not. The nursery was a battlefield of shadows, frost, and broken marble. But in the center, Grayson held the triplets tight, a shield of unwavering love against the darkness. The nursery was a war zone. Marble floors were cracked and splintered, shards of crystal and wood scattered across the room, and frost clung to the walls in jagged patterns. The air was thick with tension, the lingering hum of the shadows vibrating through the walls. Liam, Lucas, and Lily clung to Grayson, their tiny hands gripping his shirt, their eyes wide and fearful. But despite the chaos, they were alive, and for now that was what mattered. Grayson's chest heaved as he pressed the triplets closer. Every fiber of his being screamed with exhaustion, but he refused to falter. He could not. He could feel the entity lurking in the shadows, watching, testing, waiting for even the slightest hesitation. Evelyn stood nearby, her silver hair glowing faintly, her eyes scanning the room, the cracks in the walls, the shadows that writhed just beyond the protective threshold. "It will come again," she said softly, her voice steady. "Patience is its weapon. Fear is its weapon. But love, your love, is stronger." Grayson nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand. I have to keep them safe. No matter what." From the cracks in the floor and walls, the shadows began to stir, twisting and writhing, their forms shifting in the dim light. The largest entity emerged first, towering over the nursery with glowing green eyes. Its long, jagged claws scraped the marble floor, sending shards flying. Behind it, the first two shadows circled, smaller but no less menacing, their smoke-like bodies moving like living darkness. Grayson pressed the triplets to his chest, whispering softly, "I love you. I will protect you. Nothing will harm you." The entity hissed, a sound that vibrated through the room, the walls, the floor, and even his chest. Its eyes locked on the triplets, then on Evelyn, then on Grayson himself. "You cannot protect them forever," it whispered, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I will protect them," Grayson shouted, his voice firm and unwavering. "No matter what, nothing will harm them." Evelyn stepped forward, her hands glowing brightly. "Focus your love," she commanded. "Let them feel your protection." Grayson closed his eyes, focusing entirely on the triplets, their warmth, their innocence, their tiny lives in his hands. He whispered their names over and over, a mantra that became a shield. "Liam, Lucas, Lily, you are safe. I will protect you, always." The entity recoiled slightly, its glowing eyes narrowing. The shadows twisted violently but could not cross the protective barrier. The temperature in the room began to rise slowly, the frost melting from the walls and floor. Suddenly, the ceiling trembled. Part of it collapsed, sending dust and debris raining down. Grayson lunged instinctively, shielding the triplets with his body. Evelyn chanted softly, her hands glowing, and the shadows shrieked in response. The largest entity struck next, slamming its claw into the floor. Cracks spread across the marble, dust filling the air. The smaller shadows surged, testing the barrier again, but could not advance. Grayson's heart pounded in his chest, every muscle tense. He whispered again, repeating his promise. "I will protect you. Nothing will harm you. I love you." The shadows hissed and twisted violently, retreating slightly into the cracks. Grayson realized the entity was learning, measuring his resolve, testing the strength of his love. Every word of fear, every hesitation, gave it strength. Every word of love, every heartbeat of protection, weakened it. The room shook again, the fissures widening, and a cold wind swept through the nursery. The triplets whimpered, but Grayson held them close, whispering their names and repeating his promises. "You are safe. I will protect you. Nothing will harm you." The entity shrieked, its form twisting violently. It lunged forward one final time, claws scraping the marble. Evelyn's hands glowed brighter, her voice rising in a commanding chant. The shadows recoiled violently, then shrank back into the cracks. Grayson sank to his knees, exhausted but holding the triplets tightly. He kissed their foreheads, whispering softly, "I will not fail you. I promise." Evelyn approached him, her hands still glowing faintly. "The battle is not over," she said softly. "It will return, stronger, more relentless. But for now, they are safe." Grayson looked around the ruined nursery, at the cracks in the walls, the shattered chandeliers, the frost lingering in the corners. He realized the entity would never stop. It was patient, clever, and relentless. It wanted the triplets. But he also realized something else, so did he. He had a power of his own. Their love, his protection, his unwavering presence. And as long as he held that, the shadows could never truly claim them. The triplets nestled against him, their tiny bodies trembling but alive. Grayson pressed a kiss to each forehead, whispering softly, "I will protect you, always, no matter what." The shadows stirred one last time in the cracks, a reminder that this war was far from over. But in the center of the nursery, in the midst of chaos and fear, Grayson held the triplets close. His love, unwavering and pure, was a shield stronger than any darkness, a promise that would never break. If you enjoyed the story, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more emotional and powerful billionaire stories coming soon.